for your support. Okay, well, welcome to Black History Conversations. We're well into season 9 now. We ended season 8 before Easter, and we got up to session 100, which was just absolutely amazing. This was a project that started during the COVID times, when we thought that we could get together and we could share the project work that we were doing, and invite other people to tell us about what project work they were doing. So as I say, after how many sessions did I say? We got to the end of the 8th season, we'd done actually 100 sessions. So I felt very proud of that. So I'm Liz Millman from Learning Links International, the North Wales Jamaica Society and Jamaica Heritage Links. And we've got Garrick Prayog with us here, who's sort of co-hosting with me along with Lemesha. Garrick is the one of the directors of Justice for Windrush Generation. So Garrick, we're always delighted to have you to join us. We've also got Lemesha, who's going to introduce herself properly in a moment, if that's all right, Lemesha. And when I've just done a bit of an intro, we've also got June Elizabeth White-Smith-Gully with us, and she's the one of the team that's got the Windrush International Allies Network going. And what we've been doing in season 9 has been focusing on Windrush 75. So this is quite a change for us. So we've just got three sessions at the end of this season that we're not concentrating on Windrush, but having said that, I'm sure there will be lots of catch-ups on that. So I'm just going to share the screen now and just show you our most up-to-date promotion. So today it's about Black History recognition in London. So I'm really, really delighted to be able to welcome Lemesha Ruddock to take a lead with this session. Now, Black history is being recognised more and more all around the country, and we haven't actually looked at Black history well, we have looked at Black history recognition because we've got a guest with us today who's done a great deal on this. But this is an opportunity for folks to have their say. So it's about inviting Londoners to join in, and people who've had anything to do with London or links with London, in an important conversation, Lord Mayor of London's community consultation to honour the victims of the transatlantic slave trade and recognise London's role in the trade. So Lemesha Ruddock, welcome. You're the creative director of Blame Fatale. I might be pronouncing this all wrong, Productions, but you can correct me in a moment, and co-executive director of Boundless Theatre. So you're here to lead the conversation, and just to show you what props we've got, this is the PowerPoint which gives the introduction to the Mayor of London announcing the new plans, and the memorials led by the Mayor's Commission for Diversity in the Public Realm. So that's to enrich and add to the current public realm and advise on better ways to raise public understandings of London's diverse histories. So by listening to Londoners' perspectives on this painful yet important part of the city's history is felt to be central to the plans for developing this memorial. Now I'm just going to flash this next slide up fairly quickly, and I can make it bigger or whatever for you, Lemesha, as we're going through. We're going to be asking questions about who should pay for the memorial, what are the dominant themes or complexities of the memorial, what's it trying to achieve, what we're trying to express, what characteristics and processes should form the creation of the shortlisted artists, and should satellite sites be connected to the artistic development that links to the primary sites. So that's a whistle-stop tour through the questions, and I'm just going to take those down at the moment so we can see who's here. Lamisha, you're going to, in a moment, introduce yourself and explain why we're looking at this, and maybe introduce Jada and Toby as two of the students involved in your project. But Avril, I've especially wanted to welcome you. Avril Nanton from Walks and Talks, and you're in today, not doing a walk, because the weather's dreadful, so I definitely understand that. But Avril, you were saying you've been really busy around London, and your great book, which if you want to speak, Avril, you can tell us the name of your book, or maybe you can come in later.
Yeah, the name of the book is Avril's Walks and Talks. I mean, sorry, that's the name of the company. The name of the book is Black London, History, Art and Culture in Over 120 Places. We also have a Black History map of London, which shows you the places you can go to just to get a glimpse of Black life, with explanations. It's got 50 different places on it. And yeah, the book came out 2021 and the map came out last year. Great.
Well, I know I promised you that I'd get down to London and come on a walk. I haven't done that yet, but I don't go back to Australia until the middle of September, so it's still time, Avril.
No problem.
Great. All right then. So Avril, special welcome to you, and it's really valuable that you're able to join us today. So I think now, Lamisha, if I could pass over to you, and you can introduce yourself properly with the correct pronunciation, without me coming in, that would be really lovely. So from Amsterdam, we have, drum roll here, people from around the world. We've got Lamisha Ruddock. So great to meet you.
Hello. I'm just gone onto this page. Can you still see me?
Are you okay?
Wait, could you see me then, or can you see me now?
I can see you now. I can see you now.
Oh, then, right.
Obviously, like me.
So yeah, hi. Thanks so much for hosting me today, Liz. When we've been working on our project and you came up with this idea, I was like, this is a great platform to have this conversation.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm Lamisha. I'm the creative director of Blem Fatel Productions, and that's a production company that focuses on weaving Black British history, like the historical research throughout the creative process, just to make it more authentic, the theatre and the events I put on, and just so people are taking a bit more from the day. And yeah, my projects. And I'm hosting this community conversation today as a step for my project in I Suit You, which I mentioned before, should I mention it again? Because it was recorded.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's a historical research and theatre making project where we'll be working with people from the age range of 15 to 18 of Caribbean heritage to do some research, put performance on, and make an ebook. And it's going to be around the history of Jamaican patois in the arts, specifically looking at like poetry, literature, music, and theatre. And I thought when the Greater London Authority came up with this fund, this was a perfect step for me because the history of Jamaican patois is embroiled in the history of slavery. The nature of the language is what it is. And I thought it would be a disservice not to like cover that in our research process and conversation process. So yeah, I was wondering, could we get the questions back up?
Sorry, yes, I'll just do that.
Yeah.
Lost the place. Excuse me.
Yeah,
so shall I just leave the questions up for a moment?
Yeah, let's leave the questions up just so I can read from it, because I'm clear enough notes. So these were the questions the Greater London Authority posed for these community conversations. Whether they are fit for purpose, I can't. We'll see. But these are the questions. Let's see what comes from it. And I just want to make sure this is a safe space in the way that we're answering questions. I feel like people should have the space to be honest and not feel judged for that. So I was wondering if we could include Chatham's law here in the space, just anything that is said doesn't leave the space or is like attached to a name by someone. Yeah,
Okay, we might
just
be compromising that straight away because we've actually started recording this session.
oh
Now,
yeah, but the recording is I'm only personally using it for evaluation.
yes, is that okay, everybody? You all right with that? We normally post our
Yeah.
the sessions, but we don't have to. We could maybe just write a little report and say what we did and what some of the main points were, something like that. But we can sort that out later.
I guess it's just whatever anyone feels comfortable in what they say. But I just wanted to put in a space just so, yeah.
Any
Just
comments from anybody about that?
Pardon?
Are there any comments from anybody about that?
No,
Nothing.
I'm fine with it. Thank you. That's fine by me.
Okay.
Often, Liz, whenever people ask the question, they have the option of keeping their camera off and just the audio would be fine. So
Yeah.
if people are happy with that, there's no issue.
Lovely.
Mhm.
Sean, I can see your hand up, but I can't hear you. Bit strange, Sean. I do apologise, Sean, I can't hear you. If you can manage to put something in the chat, that would be fine. Okay, Avril, you were saying something?
I said I'm fine with whatever the rules are. And if everyone keeps their video off, that's fine. It works better because you get a better reception. Because Lamisha keeps cutting out a lot. So
Ooh.
All right.
the more of us that have our videos off, it makes the connection stronger.
Oh, I don't have concerns. I just would like to offer that to the room.
Right. Sean's comment that he's just put in the chat is that we should stop the recording if you have any concerns at all, or if you'd like us to keep the recording and you can just have it so that you can write up your notes.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, yeah, could I just keep the recording? Yeah.
Okay, so we'll keep the record, carry on recording, but it's only for Lamesha to use to be able to write up her notes from the session. Okay, if that seems okay with everybody. If anybody's complaining, then speak now or forever hold your peace. Right, okay then. Right, Lamesha, do you want to? I thought it might be interesting first of all, Lamesha, if people commented on what their just a general comment initially, particularly Avril and Garrick. And anybody else who wants to come in. Avril, what are your thoughts about this memorial, just generally, just before we get started on the questions?
I don't have any thoughts about it at the moment because I want to hear more about it. Today's the first I'm hearing about it, to be honest, because I'm just so busy. I haven't heard anything before. So I'd be interested to hear what the actual memorial is going to be and where it's going to be placed, etc.
Okay, so maybe we better ask you, Lamisha, to give us some more background about this before we even start, or about what you know about it.
I honestly think these are just like the initial conversations about this memorial. I feel like they're testing to see what's the British public is feeling in this moment. That's why they're hosting a couple of these community conversations, just to see if this is wanted. I think so. I think they're not even at that step yet.
I think, like Avril, it's David here. I haven't heard anything at all about this. There's no particular reason why I should. I'm not particularly well plugged in. However, I do live in London, and so if there was something major going on, I hope I would have heard about it. But I think, as Lamisha's just said, it's probably in very, very early stages yet. And is this an opportunity today for us to discuss whether we think such a memorial is a good idea? Is that the purpose of today?
Yeah, it's basically just to get an opinion of those questions, like should we have a memorial? What should it memorialize? Who should pay for it? Those kind of questions, which I feel like we'll get quite a lot of different answers maybe.
Okay, with the joys of technology, this is the Mayor of London's site, okay, the London Assembly. And so this is the blurb that they've put out. So I'll read it in case you can't see it if you're working on a phone or something. So it's a new memorial for the victims of the transatlantic slave trade. The Mayor of London's announced plans for a new memorial in the capital to honour the victims of the transatlantic slave trade and recognise London's role in the trade itself. This is what I said. Why a new memorial? This may give us some more information. London played a fundamental role in the organisation and funding of the transatlantic slave trade. While there are monuments commemorating of abolition, many statues and buildings reflecting the wealth and power the slave trade created, there is little to memorialise the millions of African people who were enslaved and abused as a result, or its impact on generations of Black communities. Ahead of the International Day of the Remembrance of the Victims of Slavery and the Transatlantic Slave Trade, the Mayor is committing £500,000 to develop a memorial with its first site in West India Quay in London Docks. The area is home to the warehouses that were built to receive the products of slavery, the only surviving buildings of their kind in the capital. West India Quay is also home to the Museum of London Docklands, whose London Sugar and Slavery Gallery includes an evolving exhibition dedicated to the history and legacies of the city's involvement in the slave trade. The announcement of the new memorial was marked with a morning of rich and powerful discussions at the Museum of London Docklands. We can listen if you want to Toya Demi-Panton's response to the new memorial. She's a London-born writer, spoken word poet, and especially commissioned to write a piece for the event. Toya was recognised in 2020 by powerful media as one of the top 150 future Black leaders in the UK. But we can go back to that, about the plan. Okay, the plan has been developed by the Mayor's Commission for Diversity in the Public Realm, who will continue to work with communities this summer as it develops an artistic brief.
The Deputy Mayor.
I'll send you a copy of that.
Please, much appreciated. Okay, thanks. Always.
Catch up, all right?
Good one, cool. Bye-bye. Bye.
Going to so Roland, let's just get you switched off, mute you. Can you? Yeah, right, okay. The work will fulfill Sadiq's manifesto pledge to support a memorial to the transatlantic slave trade alongside educational programs related to the victims and their descendants in the city. This project acknowledges the hard work, relentless campaigning undertaken by London communities over several decades. So that's important. The first site will be located outside the entrance to the Museum of Docklands and will be accompanied by a number of satellite sites that will connect the different stories of slavery across the capital. Through these satellite sites, a memorial will help bring the weight of its history and its legacy of the trade throughout the capital, the UK and the world to life. The Memorial Education Programme, working in partnership with the Museum of London Docklands, the Canal and River Trust and many other community and heritage partners, the memorial will be accompanied by an extensive engagement and education programme to tell the full picture of this vital chapter of London's history. How to get involved? This significant step in the journey will continue in consultation with community historians, activists, descendant communities, and all interested Londoners. So it's a bit worrying to hear from a couple of you that you've never heard of it before. A series of roundtables will be announced soon with support for partners to host their own conversations about the new memorial and inviting community groups, community heritage practitioners and grassroots organisations to hold conversations about the new transatlantic slave trade memorial. So this is what this is now. We're a bit out of time, but this will still go towards the general consensus of ideas. Listening to Londoners' perspectives on this painful yet important part of the city's history lies at the heart of our plans in developing this memorial. We'd like community groups, community heritage practitioners, repetitive this, grassroots organisations to host conversations about the new memorial to the slave trade. You can include any questions you feel relevant, however, we'll provide you with some discussion points that you'll need to include to help in the conversation. You'll make a note of the conversation you hosted and feed this back to the Commission for Diversity via a short online form. The team will feed these conversations into the brief and create the creating to recruit the artists creating the memorial. You don't have to have all the answers to memorial plans, just be able to host a conversation and invite Londoners to share their thoughts and feelings. And there's a small amount of funding which was allocated to this.
Okay. Do you mind if I just ask Lamisha a question? I mean,
Yes.
I'm curious to know how she has come, what's her involvement in this? Was she commissioned by the mayor's office to promote one of these conversations? I mean, what is her role in this?
So basically, I just saw a funding pot. So I'm like a fundraiser for my company and for like stuff I do, and I saw a funding pot around Black history, basically. And I thought this is a good funding pot to use for my project, basically. So I'm definitely not commissioned from here. I'm no spokesman for the Greater London Authority.
Okay. Well, what's your funding? Were you successful in getting money out of this?
Yes.
Okay, good. Well done. Okay, that's fine. I see Sean's made a comment in the chat about this.
Yeah, I'll just read it out. Sean said, did the Commission look at delivering shared heritage report of the Mayor's Commission on African and Asian Heritage 2005, and whether any progress has been made in terms of its recommendations? The tokenism is like the Borough of Culture's programme, where the Mayor allows councils like Croydon not to have neighbourhood-based emphasis for activities. I've advised Wandsworth Council to take a bottom-up approach for its planning, for its bid for 2025. Thank you very much indeed for that. And Avril's comment, thank you Avril, was that there is already a slavery memorial which has been around since 2007, which they've been trying to raise funds for this memorial since then. Right, interesting. They've not raised the amount they need till today, and there is a website address, the http www.memorial2007.org.uk/sculpture.html.
Okay. Do you mind if I pick up the point about local communities in Croydon Council and Wandsworth Council? I mean, I'm a resident of Croydon, so I know absolutely where Sean is coming from. We could spend all afternoon talking about the failings and iniquities of Croydon Council. They're awful, they're dreadful, their borough of culture was a joke. Nonetheless, is it worth us discussing in principle whether we think it's a good idea to have some sort of memorial that brings out the links between London's historic links with the slave trade? I mean, in principle, do we think that's a good idea? Let's set aside for the moment our obvious concerns about Croydon, Wandsworth, and the mayor's office and all of that. In principle, what do we think?
Gary, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, in answer to your question, David, I would say yes. And just to qualify that statement, any memorial is really for the future. It's there to tell a story.
I'll do that.
And so, we've got to make sure that the story tells is the right story. But in principle, that is fine. That legacy is about leaving something behind, but also what does that represent?
Okay, I agree with that. I mean, I think there should be some sort of memorial. I think this history is sort of really not well known by many Londoners. I mean, the extent to which London's wealth as a city is built on the slave trade, I think needs to be explained to people. Not just London. I mean, people talk about Liverpool and Bristol a lot, but London, was probably one of the prime beneficiaries of the slave trade. So I think that message needs to be brought home loud and clear. So, I mean, I agree with you that my view is there should be some sort of memorial in principle. You can always argue about where it should be, but the London Docklands would make a fairly sensible place for it to be. I don't know I wonder if anybody on the call would disagree with that.
Okay, well, just waiting to see if anybody wants to respond to that. I think it.
I agree with David and Garrick. I agree with what you're saying. I just echo it. And when the memorial is being considered, whose voices are going to be the ones that they take into consideration about what the memorial is going to stand for and what's it going to be, you know? Because I can remember when they were doing the one at Waterloo, and then we went round the table at the end when they'd already made the decision. So, you know.
Okay, well, thank you very much indeed, June Elizabeth. That's a good contribution. Jada and Toby, at any stage, if you just want to come in, then just join in and make a comment. You're very, very welcome. And anybody else. Okay, then. So shall we go back to the questions now then and see what they suggested that
Yeah, they're running order.
and oh, sorry, I've come up with the wrong page now. Right. Okay. With any luck, this might be the page that comes up next. Yes, here we are. Lovely, lovely. Okay, who should pay for this memorial? It's a bit bold to start with.
Yeah.
Fine. The British
So who?
government should pay for this
Yeah.
memorial. That's my comment. All right. Over to the rest of you.
What was your comment, Liz?
The British government.
Okay. What about the institutions, people like Lloyd's, Lloyd's and all those other companies like them who owe their very existence to the slave trade?
They're the people that I think should pay for it. Lloyd's, all the banks, insurance companies, building societies, people who are really benefiting from the enslaved people. They should pay for it, and they should pay substantially for it. In fact, they should pay for the whole thing and don't look to the government or the British people to pay, but get the companies to pay. That's what I think.
Good point. Any other
I
points?
wonder how do you track that though? I guess a lot of companies have their legacy is embroiled with slavery. Yeah. What's the marker? How can we deem that?
Well, the marker is that they all know their history, and we all know their history, or most of them. It's all there out in the open for people to see. We all know that practically every bank started with slavery, so therefore every bank will be included. Lloyd's Insurance, all the insurance companies, basically use your common sense, because if we know their history and it's out there, we already know it, then they have to pay.
And the thing is, they don't have to pay, do they? I mean, they should. They should pay. I agree, they should pay.
It should go to them to pay.
Yeah, Toby's saying that aristocracy, wealthy families, the royal family, should they also pay?
Well, I think Sean said in the comments as well, I think it was Sean, about the Anglican Church as well, Church of England. I mean, there's absolutely no question at all that the Church of England, the monarchy, also profited from the slave trade, without doubt.
You won't get a penny from the royals, I doubt.
They can't afford it.
Toby makes a good
But
point.
remember, any money that the royals get comes from us anyway.
Yeah.
So Toby makes the point that he thinks, Toby, I'm making an assumption there, that you think that so many other individual people, as well as some wealthy families, aristocrats, the royal family, you've chipped in there, you say should also pay. And Sean says lots of info on firms recorded on the Legacies of British Slave Ownership project website. So there's information there. Sean also suggests the King and the Anglican Church. Well, yes, they're busy looking at what their history is. But interestingly, and I'm butting in a bit here, Lamisha, it also says, should London's Black communities pay for this memorial to ensure that the money is ethical?
I've never seen.
This has come in the consultation document. It says this, should London's Black communities pay
It's a
for
silly
the
thing
memorial
ever.
to ensure that the money is ethical? What do you think about that?
I think it's an insult.
Yeah, that's not far off. I mean, I think the Black community should, if you like, have the leading voice in what this memorial should be, where it should be placed, how it should be used for educational purposes. The Black community should definitely be in charge, if that's the right word, of that. But in terms of funding, no, I don't think the Black community should be funding it. That's an insult, really.
Follows up June's point. Anybody else want to comment on that? Keep an eye on the chats. Universities. June Liz has come in. Sean's reminded us that the King's initiated research into the Crown connections with the slave trade and slavery.
I think the church has too.
And the church has, yes. It's interesting that the King's research appears to be one wonderful person doing the PhD. I think we know the answer to the question in the first place, but anyway, at least he's doing something. Okay, so I think, Lamisha, I'm summarising here, but judging by what people have been putting in the chat and the comments, there seems to be a feeling that British financial institutions ought to make a contribution, but not the Black communities in terms of the finance, but the Black communities should take the lead. London's Black communities take the lead on the decision making about what the actual memorial looks like. Am I summarising that properly, peeps? Okay, so the next bit of the question, do you want to take over again, Lamisha?
Yeah, so the next thing is more about like what the content of the memorial, and it asks what are the dominant themes or complexities of the memorial, and what is it trying to achieve? What are we trying to express? What is the message of the memorial? If it's to commemorate African slaves, basically, or slavery, the people who died from slavery, suffered from slavery, how do you convey that? And what are you trying to leave the whoever's seeing the memorial feeling? Is it guilt? I'm interested to see what people think.
Well, I don't know what anybody else thinks. I mean, I'm not sure you necessarily want to promote feelings of guilt. You want to, I think, promote understanding. This is history that I didn't know about. I'm personally sorry it happened, but I'm glad that I now know more about what it happened. I understand better why London looks the way it looks and how London became wealthy in the first place. I think to me, it's about education, to be honest.
Right, Garrick?
Just thinking about those complexities, whatever information about a memorial have to be truthful.
Yeah.
There's a lot of information out there that doesn't really tell you the truth. It actually cover over the truth. So again, the point that was made about, the Black community leading on that is to establish those truth. Even those truth might be uncomfortable, but the truth is the truth. and telling that story accurately, because at the moment there are lots of inaccurate stories out there that doesn't really give you the right narrative. So I think it's important to have the right narrative. I think it's important to also, I mean, it talks about feeling and emotion. It is an emotive subject. Whichever way you look at it, it will always be an emotive subject. But the whole idea is to try and at least convey what happened. You know, let me give an example of that. So most of us know what a tin of sardine looks like. Yes. So a tin of sardine, you open it, and then inside, as you pull open the sardine, you will see, you know, how the sardines are really squashed together in that tin. If you apply that to the way that the Africans were transported from Africa to the Americas and to the Caribbean, you get a sense of how people were transported, the restriction they had, the restrictive movement. And sometimes we use the expression like in a sardine tin, because you know that's how compact they were. So, you know, these are very emotive things, but the reality, that's what happened. That's exactly what happened. It's also, you know, people that didn't make the trip was just thrown overboard. Those are realities. So, you know, telling the story or stories accurately is important. And that can only come from the Black communities who are part of that story.
Right, I hear what you're saying, Gary. It's also, well, does anybody else want to come in? I'm scrolling down the side and checking the chat.
I've put the link back into the memorial of 2007. And personally, for me, that's a great memorial because it tells a story it tells a story quite well. And this memorial, as I said, they've been trying to get the funding for this for years. I don't know if anybody knows Oku. Does anyone know Oku?
No.
Okay. She's a woman who's been fighting for this memorial to be placed. Actually, she wants it put in Hyde Park, but I'm sure she wouldn't mind if they gave her the funding for it and they put it in somewhere else. But she's been fighting to get this memorial up. That's just the maquette that you can see on for so long. I think it would just kill her if the mayor came along and just put something else up in its place, because this maquette's been made for a long time and they've been waiting for it to be, you know, finding a place to get the money and the funding. And it tells the story because it starts with, you know, people being captured and comes up to the freedom, which is why it's on a circle. So I think it's quite a good memorial because it does actually tell you you know what happened if you didn't know. Not that I think there'd be anybody out there now who doesn't know.
Derek, you just raised your hand.
Yes. What Avril has just pointed out to us is that, you know, the memorial and the historic factor already exists, but not funded. So maybe there need to be another conversation about how to get that memorial, this memorial, funded. Now, I don't know, you know, because I haven't read all the information, but just looking at the depiction of the story and back to the ship and the sardine tin and the packing, etc., then maybe, you know, we should be thinking about, you know, getting this memorial up in whatever location. But I think the story is well told in this depiction here.
Seems very well told to me. Can you all see this that I'm scrolling through?
Mm,
Yeah,
Excellent. It's excellent.
brilliant. I
We don't
thought,
need
you know,
to- we don't need to read, what you call it,
Revisit. This definitely needs
No.
a
No.
yeah, need to support this.
yeah,
just
let's
sign-
all sign the petition and get it moving.
Yeah, exactly.
As you can see, she's been trying to do this for years. It's taken Oku
Mm.
over 10 years to try and get people interested in funding
Mm.
this,
Mm,
interested in getting up. She's tried everything. She's written to government. She's done everything, and she still cannot get enough money to get this thing off the ground.
Mm.
I've been trying to help her. I've bought stuff. I've donated. I've done everything. And we just can't seem to get enough people. And I think it's a fantastic memorial. And I think if Sadiq Khan knew about it, or he might do, he might well be interested in getting.
Well, if he doesn't, we need to remind him, because, you know, why reinvent the wheel? It's there.
Yeah.
And interestingly, I mean, this was produced for 2007,
Yep.
which is now a long time ago. So it may well be that, you know, it's definitely gone off the mainstream, but it's certainly fascinating. I signed it when somebody told me about this a couple of weeks ago, so that's why I can't sign it again. It's stopping me from doing it. But yeah, it's amazing. So I'm very quickly, because you're going to see this flash before your eyes, I'm just going back up to the top, right? So it's memorial2007.org.uk/sculpture. And it is amazing. Amazing. Okay, so I'm going to now look at the chats and come up with the points. Sean says, yes, Oko has been amazing. He agrees with Avril. While more people know about the slave trade, they don't necessarily know about the local London connections. And I think that's one of the things that we've emphasised in Black History Conversations is we need to look local. I mean, I'd be very interested in a satellite place, for example, being where the wool used to be brought from all over Britain and then transported to the Low Countries. And that all sounds quite innocent, doesn't it? Except the Low Countries were owned by Spain, and they then used to weave the wool, and the cloth used to go across the Atlantic to the Spanish colonies. So that's a project I've been working on. That's 90% certain. I don't think I've read this comment from Dobie before. Understanding is so important, and greater understanding should help promote people to think for themselves about how we can reconcile these wrongdoings, reparations, funding programs, education, etc., and what role they may play in upholding the institutions or beneficiaries of the slave trade. Gosh, that's a really good point you're making there, Toby. So that's in the comments. So right, I think I've gone through the comments. I'm going to stop sharing that, and I'm going to find the questions again. So we'll just, yes, here we are. Right, off we go again. So really, really good point, I think, Avril, that you've raised there, and the rest of you in London know about this as well. Right, just a minute, trying to find the shares. Right, next question, over to you.
All right, the next question, I guess, because what characters was so I guess what I got from the conversation we just had before, that you guys are really really passionate about this artist and this memorial that's already been created. So I guess this question about shortlisting artists is just like seeing what work's already been done already. So what characteristics or process should inform the creation of the shortlisted artists? I guess like having these conversations and be like, these are some artists who are already doing the work, but not being funded. Look right there. That's the kind of vibe I've been getting from your applications.
That makes sense, doesn't it? When you think about it, if people already engage in work, then, you know, there's CVs out there in the public realm. You know, this is the work I've been doing for X amount of years. So, you know, I don't know how many artists have embarked on a memorial like the one we've just seen, but I don't think there will be many. So, you know, if you're looking at, you know, a list of artists, you probably only come up with 2 or 3, I would have thought.
Well, I was looking at people like Martin Jennings, who did the Mary Seacole.
Yes, I know
Yeah.
him, yeah.
And unfortunately, the guy who did Nelson Mandela has passed away. That was Ian. But I'm sure there are, you know, sculptures out there who are chomping at the bit to get a chance to do something, you know, new sculptors, young sculptors, who possibly want a chance to do something they've never done before. And I don't see why they shouldn't be given a chance as well as the older ones. You've even got someone like Raymond Watson, who works mostly in steel and metal. You know, that would be an unusual and different type of sculpture.
And maybe, you know, people coming together to form a team. So, you know, that's probably the best approach. So Avril just mentioned, you know, particular sculpture with different skill set. Those who work with metal, steel, etc. Those who work with clay, you know, that old skill set coming together. So if half a dozen, you know, skilled people can come together on a project, then I'm sure the end result is only going to be, you know, inspiring.
Excellent. Any other comments on that? I think it is really important that others are given an opportunity, and if it's going to be in the Docklands, my comment would be it's going to be relatively small, and really to me it's the scale and the engagement of almost everybody at that time and beneficiaries subsequently, and how the scale of this Holocaust, Matha, call it what it's almost difficult to express in words, the horror of the scale of the enslavement of Africans over so many centuries. And if you do think of how the Jews have looked to memorialize and recognize the Holocaust, there's massive most places where you can go to the old camps and things like that. But this is a different history, a very different history, which went on for very, very, very much longer, and is really difficult to think how that's the scale of it can be indicated by what we think of as memorials normally, things on plinths that stand in public spaces. But how could this be on that scale? So that's my thoughts. My comment is about.
That's a good point, Liz. I mean, that's an excellent point, because, you know, size does matter when you're telling, you know, a enormous story like this that spanned, you know, hundreds of years. So size and scale is important. And it may be that now that we're thinking about Dockland may not be the place if the space is restricted in that area. And it may well require a much larger space in order to to tell the story and for it to stand out. You know, in London, there's certain building that is considered to be, you know, landmark, and you can see them from a distance. So, you know, something like a memorial, you know, should be seen from a distance, should stand out. So, you know, if you are walking and you look up, it's there. If you are in the bus and looking up, it's there. And if you're in the plane above the air and looking down, it's there. So, you know, there is a need for consideration in terms of location and size.
I think it's interesting if you think internationally, then the other memorials, other places that have been a bit quicker off the mark, but still desperately slow, like the United Nations. It took them forever to agree what the memorial was going to be, and it has now been produced. I could probably try and find it to show you. And there are other large scale, physically large scale memorials around the world. And I remember hearing a talk from someone many years ago, before 2007, I think. He'd designed a memorial for the West African coast, one of the countries in the West African coast, and he was seeking funding for that. And you could buy illustrations of what this enormous memorial was going to be. So I think just thinking of something sort of neat and small, like the one at Waterloo Station or wherever it is, the Windrush Memorial, it's kind of the scale of what they're trying to share here is quite different. Well, even more so. Okay.
Incidentally, there's a very good point. You just referred to Waterloo Station. So if you know, if Waterloo Station is closed, you don't see the memorial because inside the station. So, you know, any memorial need to be out there, you know, it's not hidden in any other building.
Yeah. I was just trying to see if I could find the UN memorial.
Well, you know, I wrote my book, Black London, based on practically all of the statues and memorials in the book are outside. Because as Patrick says, Garrick says, it's very important that the statues are outside, because that way people don't have to make an appointment to go and see them, or they don't have to wait for a certain time. They could just go and see them whenever they want to. And that's really important because people have different time zones and different, you know, time things going on in their lives. And if they want to go and see it at 3 o'clock in the morning, they can.
Yes, it's I've just found the page for the UN Memorial for Slavery, and this picture here probably shows the outline of it, but then there are pictures that show the detail of it. And that was, I can't remember when that was agreed in the end with the figure there. There was quite a lot. It was a very, very long consultation. Anyway, look that up for yourselves. Right, I've got somebody else in the chat. Sorry, so Sean says, if we argue for Opera's project to be the one Khan should support and help and fund, the artist could be commissioned to design in local areas of London, reflecting Sam Sharp was a slave on the Croydon estate in Jamaica, though we do not know how the plantation was named after Croydon. If Docklands is not appropriate, why not a central London Royal Park or Parliament Square as the centre of the state and Anglican support of the slave trade? good points there.
Well, having just read that by Sean, I don't know if people are aware, but next to Parliament is Victoria Tower Gardens, where we have the Buxton Memorial Fountain. And next, what they're doing now is they've closed down the Buxton Memorial Fountain because they're building a Jewish memorial next to it for the LGBT community of the the Jewish LGBT community. Now you're not going to be able to see the Buxton Memorial Fountain. It's going to overshadow it. There's been a huge campaign to try and stop this thing being built because people feel that there are enough Jewish memorials. You don't need a specific LGBT memorial. And there's been a big campaign going on, which Oku and I were sort of not involved with, but we know about because we were asked about it. But, that's the place where if they're going to build something next to Parliament, build it there. Why not?
Thank you for that comment. Thank you very much.
Another point, Liz, is this. It doesn't necessarily mean one memorial. London is a big city. So London is split. You got south, east, west, north. So, there can be memorial in each of those areas. It may be the main memorial is in terms of size is in a certain place, but other places you can have duplicate memorial in other places. So it doesn't necessarily mean one memorial for London and that's it.
Yes, this is true. Lamisha, are there other questions, other points you'd like to get folks to discuss now?
Not really. I guess I was just really thinking about I was really interested in what were you talking about, the scale and where it should be, in the sense that when I look at like the Berlin memorials, when I think of the Berlin memorials, I can imagine a scale and I can equate a statistic to a person and to people and lives lived. And I think, yeah, we should that's the kind of reality people don't realize. And I feel like that's something, I think that's the reality people kind of like skate by when looking at slavery. And I feel like those lives should be commemorated in a way that's like, you can understand the scale. So I mean, pushing for that. And then I guess because London is fairly big, but I feel like having something really big and core to pull everyone in so we can like, I guess, heal collectively. I don't know. Yeah, those are what I kind of got from it. But yeah, thank you for your thoughts, everyone.
Well, I think you've done brilliantly to bring this to our attention, because if you hadn't, some of us wouldn't know about this consultation.
Yeah,
I know we're like past time when you can submit for the main consultation, but what I was going to suggest is that on behalf of this group and this session, and you can word it how you like, we wish to raise the work that was done for 2007 and Oku's work, and say how important it is that is in its own right recognised, as well as whatever else over the future years can be done. Sean makes the point that at a local level, heritage boards with explanations might be appropriate, and that could be a really good way of explaining. But I think your work, oops, the daisy, I'm losing my place here. Sorry, there's a screen every now and again. Avril's work, for example, where Avril has looked and studied where all these places are with a relevance to Black history. Avril, what are your thoughts about these places being signed and being made more obvious? I mean, your work is just fantastic.
June Elizabeth, you're making a lot of noise. Thanks. No, I think that the idea of having north, south, east, and west is great, but south would have to be somewhere like southeast, because that's where the docks are on that side, and that, you know, you've got to put them in the right places, because London is very large, and obviously you want people to see them as much as possible, so you want them in a place where people go. You don't want it stuck behind somewhere that no one goes there, so you want it in a main area so that people will look at it and say, what's that? If you stick it somewhere where it's nice and quiet, like they've done with Coleridge Taylor's statue in Charles Street in Croydon, where it's so quiet and it's really awkward to get to, and no one ever sort of sees it. So you want to put it, the statue or statues or the board that someone suggested, somewhere where people can actually see it, because otherwise you stick it somewhere no one's going to look at it, it's pointless, it's a waste of money. It's got to be out in the open.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I think your work is really important, though, because it goes back to the initial point that one of us made, I can't remember who, about education, that really the most important thing out of this whole exercise is to increase people's understanding about the stories of Black history. And I had an incident just recently, I'm just trying to bring it to mind, when somebody commented on, oh, not more about that Black history, you know, do we have to keep hearing about it? I'm thinking, yes, because we're still not really understanding about it. My concern is the, after Black Lives Matter, after George Floyd's murder, Black Lives Matter, how can we keep the momentum going without people like the person who said that, you know, losing interest and cutting off from it? But it wasn't just a comment that it was, you know, I've had enough about this. It was actually a negative. There was a negativity in the person to talk about these issues because they felt uncomfortable, and they didn't want to feel uncomfortable. They couldn't come to terms with it. And so I think, well, there are so many different projects going on around the country, and we've had the honour in Black History Conversations of welcoming people like Professor Sir Jeff Palmer from Edinburgh to talk about the work that he was been doing there to raise awareness, with the full backing of Edinburgh City Council, and looking at the statue of Dundas, I think it is, and how that could be renamed. And that's just like sort of one small element, but a great deal has been done in Edinburgh. And I don't know, in a city as enormous as London, all the different boroughs, and, you know, clearly you all know your own areas and know what's going on there or not going on there, and how the Black history can be shared. So Avril, I just have the greatest respect for what you do, and also my colleagues in Birmingham, based in Birmingham, the Black Heritage Walks Network, the work that they're doing. And I know they came out to Nottingham, Northampton, sorry, the place is wrong, Northampton, June Elizabeth, and helped to create a Black history work in Northampton. And then there's little places like Bewdley on the River Severn, where the group there got together after Black Lives Matter, raised awareness, and looked at Bewdley's links with the slave trade. But I went to visit a few weeks back to see what has happened since then. They produced a really good map and really good information and really good website. And I went into the museum in Bewdley and I asked if I could have a copy of the Black History walk for Bewdley. And the person there from the museum had no idea, had not even heard about it. So it's one of the things I'm concerned about is a sort of flash in the pan. Suddenly, you know, things happen. And also, you know, when you get signage, so often you go to places where there's been heritage lottery money spent and beautiful signage has been created, but you know, over the years it deteriorates, nobody maintains it, and then looks even worse. So yeah, there's lots of issues to concern. So I'm rambling on now, Lamisha, so you just keep me under control, please.
Liz, the point you made some really excellent point. You know, first of all, about how we challenge those bigots out there that don't want these conversations to take place. And every time we talk about Black Lives Matter, somebody will say, "What about White Lives Matter?" and so forth. So you know, this conversation, we always need to challenge people negativeness, but also, you know, in this session, we have conversation around Black history, but we always emphasize the point that this conversation is not limited. These conversation must be taken outside into other conversation. So, you know, when the opportunity arises for us to talk about, you know, Black Lives Matters, or to talk about any other subject matter around, you know, minority issues or gender issues or discrimination or police brutality, whatever it may be, right? This conversation is not restricted to just one place, one audience. And the most important is that, you know, we want to engage as far as we can with other people in these conversations. And you're right, Liz, because some people, you know, you go to a library and you ask for certain information, and it's almost like, well, we don't know anything about that. But yet, you know, they ought to know about it because it's a library provision, and they ought to know, you know, what's going on locally in their community.
That's a good point about libraries coming in here and saying, but it's not Black History Month.
Yeah, yes. As if you're restricted to 28 days or 30 days.
Okay, we've got a couple of comments in the chat though. So Sean says that boards, for example, in Park Hill and Norbury Parks in Croydon, which are on the estates of the owner involved in the slave plantation ownership in Jamaica. It's a really good point. It's really relevant. And maybe now we've all got, some of us have got familiar with the UCL website, which has got all this information. And local history groups could perhaps be looking at their local history. So, Sean, you give an example there in London, and I don't want to digress because we're talking about London. But for example, I was brought up in Worcestershire in a little village called Blakedown, and the next little village is called Hagley. I think I might have told this story before, but I'll tell it again. Anyway, in Kingston, there's a road called Hagley Park Road. Oh gosh, I was so surprised when I saw that. And then discovered that the estate in Hagley, which is still private, so like people don't really think about it, you know, it's just there. The Littleton family, one of the Littletons was the Governor General of Jamaica. And yet the local history society talks nothing about this link with Jamaica. So you're quite right, sure, we could do with a few boards, and we were a big board outside Hagley Park, all right. And Toby says, sorry everyone, he has to leave. It's been a really good discussion. Thanks for letting me be a part of it. Well, Toby, if you're still there, we're really glad that you were able to join us and look forward to meeting up with you again at some stage. Excellent. Okay then. So last word to you, Lamisha, then, unless anybody else wants to chirrup in with anything.
Anyone else want to jump in?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was all from me. I think there's one more question I have there.
Right. Do you want the questions back again?
Yes, please.
Here we are, yes.
Yeah. So the last one's around the satellite sites. So assuming that London's the primary site, there are satellite sites, and I'm assuming it's just like from the Commonwealth, places in the Commonwealth. So the question is, should satellite sites be connected to the artistic development that links to the primary sites? Oh, I went to Durham. But yes, I feel like I recognize you. Durham,
I'm having difficulty understanding this question, and I'm not unintelligent.
Yeah, and I don't know what it means neither.
I think what I was trying to ask is whether the creative conceptualization of the memorial should have input from the satellite sites, and that seems pretty obvious. Like the more insight, the better. Should satellite sites be connected?
Maybe it's an idea of this sort of idea of Sean's, like that this is not just one memorial in one place, but there should be throughout London, with the blessing of the Lord Mayor of London, that there are similar or not similar, but there are complementary developments all around the City of London, which, like the display boards or walks or whatever it might be. That's the only way to reply.
Do you think it also includes like the Commonwealth countries and like having a memorial in like hotspots there?
Well, this is
across UK.
Mayor of London looking at it. I think the British government should be looking at it, and British government, not just the English, not just, well, the English, Welsh, Scottish and Northern Ireland governments need to look at what they ought to be doing and where they ought to be encouraging recognition in other parts of the world, and maybe, you know, maybe they ought to be funding, or we ought to get the banks and everybody else, whoever we were thinking of, ought to be funding things in Nigeria, in Ghana, in the countries along the West African coast, and then also the countries where the enslaved Africans were taken, and their descendants lived.
Good point, though, isn't it? You know, in terms of the British government or the Commonwealth Office or the Foreign Office, you know, as represented by the British government, you know, get involved, because it's a global thing. They had their hand, their foot, their nose, their head in everything. So, you know, they can't be sort of excluded. And I think that is quite a point. If you think about the Commonwealth countries and you start to name over 50 odd countries, then you would see the scale of where they've, you know, they've been and put their marker down. So there should be something in those places to tell the story as well.
It's difficult, Eric, though, because when you think of the empire, or which preceded the Commonwealth, not every country in the Commonwealth empire was actually, well, it's difficult to think of any that weren't involved in some way with the slave trade, because it's just such a global thing. But you know, when you're looking for West African countries to respect the many men, women and children who were taken, to remember them, they shouldn't be having to pay for memorials in their own country when it was the European traders that committed the crime.
Yeah,
The European traders that are
there is some data out there that shows, you know, the European involvement in stealing and gathering wealth. And on top of it, the very first country, and it gives it in thousand or million, whatever, the very first country is the Portuguese wealth, and the second country listed is Britain. So those are the two top countries in the world.
Britain top 4.
Hmm?
What's Britain top 4?
The Portuguese is the #1 country in relation to slavery, theft, invasion, removing things from
Okay,
other
I hear
countries.
what you're saying. Yes, yes, yes.
And Britain is #2.
Started it,
Yeah.
and then the Spanish, and then the British came hot on their heels.
Yeah. Britain is #2, and when you look at that, you know, it's almost, there is no place that they haven't been.
No. All right. Back to you then, Lamisha, to see if anybody else has got any more comments. There's another chat. Comment in the chat.
Yeah, I was
Can
just
you read the
interested.
comment in the chat.
Oh,
Sean says his work with Durham academics on Northeast slavery and abolition has led to the involvement of the cathedral staff with a view to redoing their cathedral guided talks to show the links at the cathedral. That's, you know, another way is to engage all these other organisations who in some way were involved to give some recognition. But back to you, Lamisha.
yeah, it was interesting to see just like how, I know we're this is between us and the Mayor of London, but how bigger the conversation should be at a government level, British government level. Yeah, and I guess like how much is a statue being used to curtail like the conversation around reparations? How much is this trying to like just trying to appease something? Yeah, if we reach that kind of conversation level. But definitely I feel like satellite sites, primary sites, everyone should just be included in the conversation of how they want their history memorialized. Yeah.
What's interesting, perhaps we're talking about memorializing things here and remembering, recognizing, respecting. And a physical memorial is the thing we're talking about here that the Bishop, the Mayor of London's consulting about. But in Australia, going back to the time I've spent there over the last 4 years, the thing that brings attention to the fact of the unfairness and the despicable ill treatment of the first Australians, the Aboriginal people, is that at the beginning of every meeting, this is not optional, this is every council meeting, every meeting you have to discuss whether the playground equipment needs replacing or whatever, or a Rotary meeting or whatever meeting it is, a community meeting, the meeting starts with a respect and recognition for the Aboriginal people. So those of you who've been on these things before when I've been in Australia know that I start with a remembrance and recognition of the first Australians, the Aboriginal people, and respect their elders, past, present and future. I don't do that when I'm in England because of Wales, because we don't do that here, but it is the norm in Australia now that this happens, so that all the time this issue is brought to the fore. I can't suggest that that's going to happen in Britain, but we talked about the fact that we ought to start our meetings with a respect and recognition. Do you remember, Gareth? We tried various different alternatives.
We have got a draft, Liz, haven't we? So it's not perfect, but you know, we've got something.
But I think we ought to think back on that. So, you know, that's kind of put it back in my head again. Anyway, thank you for those points. I'm just going to check. There was something else Sean said as well, that given the tokenism of the consultations, it would be worthwhile individuals writing to their GLA members to make the points for questioning the Mayor. And June Elizabeth Whitesmith Gully says she agrees with you, Sean. I think that's a good idea. For those of you who are in London, write to your Greater London Authority members to make the points for questioning the mayor. Okay, would that be, do you want to do a summary of all of this then, Lamisha, as your contribution?
Yeah, a little summary of the, just what we got from it, from the first question, who should pay for this memorial. We kind of had a collective idea of how some of the questions were a bit just not the right questions. It's quite obvious who should pay for the memorial. It's quite obvious who shouldn't pay for the memorial, and that is Black people for just existing. And then what's the next question?
Sorry, back to the questions again. Sorry, back to the questions.
That's what I'm going to take on board, definitely, from feedback. And then for the second question, what do we want the memorial to express? And I think we were trying to get to the idea of the scale of just how the numbers of people who suffered and whose lives were lost, and a scale that no one really can conceptualize or really wants to like get into, because it's just sad. It's a sad amount of people. And then from the characteristics in the process, you guys were really like advocating for, is it Oku's memorial of 2007, and just the idea that there was so much work being done, but being very ignored and not funded, and these conversations aren't reaching the people because the GLA are kind of doing it in quite a lazy way, in my opinion. And then should satellite states be connected? We talked about just how the scale of this whole conversation could be expanded to have some real meaningful impacts. But yeah, just satellite states, primary sites, everything, states, satellite sites, primary sites. Everyone should have a honest conversation, whether you're in central London, northeast, southwest, Birmingham. We all, yeah. So that's what I got from that. And I'm really grateful for everyone who contributed, everyone who came today, and who, made this conversation worthwhile and were candid and honest. And I can't wait to take this feedback on and try to have an impact, I guess. It's all trying in this world, yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much indeed for that, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to focus on this. And I think the point about people not knowing as well is an important thing, that if somebody who's so involved as Avril wasn't aware of it, then something's gone wrong with the publicity somewhere. And I know you only got in on it at the last minute and managed to get some funding, so you've done some consultation and we're helping you with this, so that's good. Okay then, now because the recording isn't, oh wait a minute, maybe I can stop it. Look at this. No, because Simon started the recording, I can't stop it unless I stop the whole session. So we'll just remember that we're out of the discussion time about this project now. If there was anything else anybody else wanted to raise, but thank you very much indeed, Lamisha. That's absolutely excellent. Good.
Thanks for having me, and I can't wait to work with you soon and meet you soon.
Yeah, so, and I promise that we'll catch up with all the things that I'm on my way to Natalie, spending a few days with her, so we'll get things wrapped up with that.
Yes.
Okay.
Can I just ask a question, please? Liz, what are you doing on Monday for your birthday?
It's not my birthday. I have a friend flying in from Texas, would you believe? She's someone I got to know through the project, the Wool project. She's flying into this weekend into the UK, and she's going to come up on the train to Wolverhampton, and I'm going to pick her up, and I'm going to go to my school friends in Worcestershire and Shropshire, and we're going to have lunch there together, and then go to Wales to do some sheepy things, and then I'm dropping her back on the train in Rosebery. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to meeting her.
Okay, well, have a happy birthday.
Oh, thank you very much indeed. That's good. Good, good, good. Lovely. Well, it's really lovely that you've all been here today. And David, it's great to see you again. It's really lovely, Avril, to have you. Oh, Sean says his birthday's also on Monday, the 17th of July. Goodness gracious me, I didn't know we were twins, Sean. And you've got to be at a meeting on planning developments in Croydon. Well, I will tell you what else I'm doing in the afternoon. I missed this bit out. But I'm trying to, I'm working with the councils and the mayors in Maypen, Clarendon, and Bangor in Gwynedd, North Wales. And we have a Zoom meeting to discuss the twinning, the official, the possibilities of official twinning, so that when you drive into Bangor, it will say Bangor, North Wales, it will say, welcome to the city of Bangor, North Wales, twinned with some place in Germany we've never heard of, and Maypen, Clarendon, because they're now reviving, thanks to Brexit, they're reviving their twinning with this German town. They've been 50 years, just the anniversary now. And so it seems appropriate that they link with Maypen, Jamaica, because the Pennants family built Penrhyn Castle on the wealth that they gained from their plantations in Clarendon, built the infrastructure in that area of North Wales. So yeah, so that's quite exciting on my birthday. It's good. Right, got another chat here. Oh, Garrick saying, wonderful twinning. That would be so good, Garrick. So we've got to get the North Wales Jamaica Society behind this meeting on Monday. I'm a bit behind with the planning, so I think Garrick and June, you two had better be invited as members of the North Wales Jamaica Society.
Yeah. Well, that's going to be an important meeting. So yes, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. It's unfortunately the Mayor of Bangor can't make that meeting, so it'll be more of a sort of general introduction. So I've got to do some PowerPoints and things, but never short on PowerPoints to present. Oh, that's good. So if you two could join us on Monday.
And what time will it be? 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock?
No, it's 4 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 10 o'clock for them.
Okay,
but
that's fine.
really for the people in Clarendon,
Yes.
if they're council people, they're the ones who say that they want this meeting then. And
Lovely.
for the others, but it would be nice to have a representation from folks who support the North Wales Jamaica Society and the Jamaica Wales Alliance. Good, good, good. Thank you. Give me that opportunity to share. Okay, anybody else celebrating a birthday? I'm just going to say, June Elizabeth, I know Sir Cliff isn't too well at the moment, and I just want to send, on behalf of all of us, send our regards to him and say, you know, just hang on in there, do your best.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I will do. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Any more comments from anybody else then before I wrap up and pay up? I'm back in the library. In fact, I didn't know again today with a rule book to do this. Fortunately, it's only.
I was going to say, if anybody wants a copy of my book, it's available on my website, and the map is also available on my website. And once you order it, I'll send it to you.
So I'm looking.
And I'll sign it too.
Your website, remind me again, Avril.
www.avrilswalksandtalks.co.uk.
Avril's
Walks
Walks.
and Talks.
I'd like a copy, Avril.
Yes.
Walks and Talks. What comes next?
.co.uk. Avril's Walks and Talks.
Let's see if that works.
Don't forget the
Here we
S.
are, right, okay, peeps, the joys of technologies. Here we go. Avril's, here we are.
That's it.
Avril's,
You see, it's got a little thing that says book. On the right hand side here, it says book, and it says map. Oh, no, just got a call coming in.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Thank you very much.
Liz?
Excellent. Right, okay, no problem.
Yeah.
This is
Brilliant.
excellent. Excellent. The map. Oh, I'm going to order that definitely. You see, this is something that every school should know and be exploring in their area and finding out about what the Black history links are in their area. And here's Avril done so much work on London. That's fantastic. So you can also put work. Dear, I've lost the page now. What have I done with it? Sorry, I've managed to lose the page.
Yeah, bye, Avril.
Has Avril disappeared now?
You said she sent a message. She's had to
Okay.
go. She got a call.
Right. Okay, that's fine then.
Yeah.
Right, well, I think we'll all wind up now because my computer's just had that message to say you've forgotten to plug me in and I'm going to run out.
Liz, just
Okay.
finally, Wednesday the 19th of July, we're back in Parliament for our rally.
Right, okay.
Yeah, Wednesday the 19th, starts at 5:30 p.m. and we have 2 guest speakers coming along to talk to us, and MP from Liverpool sponsoring the event, Ian Byrne.
Wonderful. That's wonderful. You do so well. You really, really do so well, Garrett. That's absolutely amazing. All right, then, before my laptop wraps up, I'll end the session. All right, thanks very much, everybody.
Yes, bye-bye now.
Okay,
Thank
bye.
you.
One love. Bye.
All the very best. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, bye. Bye.